I'm off on a tangent. I think that's part of the problem. Well, we spank our kids and it's like, that's nothing. You have got to get their attention. You've got to break their will, not their spirit, not their heart. You should win their heart. But when their will is opposed to your will, you have got to win that fight, no matter how far you take it. Thirdly, there must be consistency. Obedience requires rules. So keep the rules the same. And this is a problem. You see, when the child is 2 years old and he says no, he's trying to find out where the line is. Everybody's got a line. There's a red line for all of us. And for some people, the line is after they've called 20 times and their blood pressure's up and they've lost their temper and they're screaming at the top of their voice. Then the kid says, that's the red line, I got to go. Well, you can put the line wherever you want it. You can move the line right back here so that when you say, John, come over here for a minute. And he says, okay. And he goes. See, children will respond to where the line is. And so first of all, they're testing where's the line. If you put the line here, the child will test it. He'll put his foot over the line. What are you going to do about that? You have to be consistent. Say, that's the line, John. Don't put your foot over it. And as soon as he does that, then you got to challenge him and provide the necessary and appropriate discipline. But what happens if the line's here today and it's over there tomorrow? He doesn't know where the line is. That's confusing. Or another thing is, if the father has the red line here and the mother has the red line over here. So I said to Peanut at night, I said, Peanut, it's time for bed. I don't know what it is. When your children leave and you get pets, you start talking to them like they're children. Daddy says it's time for bed. And here's what happens. And our wee Pippa's brilliant, So we're sitting on the sofa, and it's time for bed. And I said, Pippa, it's time for bed. And she might be sitting between the two of us, or she might be sitting in my lap. Do you know what she does? That's brilliant. She just very slowly looks over to Mommy. Doesn't she? She looks. Doesn't move very quickly. She just turns her head and she looks at Leslie. Like, what do you think? And of course, now she can do this with the dog, but don't be doing it with your children. She plays favourites. And she'd say, Pippa, it's not time to go to bed yet. Come over here and you sit with me. And then Pippa will crawl across and get in Mommy's lap, and then she'll look across at me and say, what do you think of that? And sometimes in families, that's the way it is. One parent's harder than the other parents. If Daddy says no, then they go ask Mommy. If Mommy says no, they go ask Daddy. Or then they go after the grandparents. That's even worse, because they never say no. There has to be consistency. So expect them to come to you every time. Expect them to be restricted in some ways. Children don't like to be restricted, and that's part of training. Our Jennifer, when she was a wee girl, we call her Houdini. We put her in a car seat in the back of our car. And in Northern Ireland, they'd have sporadic military stops, And we were driving through a little town one night, and a police officer stopped us, and it was just a road checkpoint. And I rolled up, and the police officer, talking to the police officer, and he happened to look back in our Jennifer's window, and she wasn't in her seat at all. She was on the floor. Now, we had her strapped in there. I mean, she was like, I don't know how she did it. She was like a knitting needle. She just thread herself out of anything. But children don't like to be in car seats, and they don't like to be in the little buggies in Walmart sitting in the seat. They're climbing all over the place. Children need to be trained to, sometimes you have to be restricted. Sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do. And that's part of the training, because guess what? A lot of times in life, you got to do things you don't want to do. And make them sleep in their own beds. They're not supposed to be in your bed. They're supposed to be in their bed. And they'll come crying to you. Now, if there's a thunderstorm or something like that, But a normal occurrence should be your children sleep in their own bed. It's part of control. It's part of consistency. It's part of training them. Doing things sometimes that they don't want to do. And if you'll do that at home consistently, you'll have no problem in public. You won't. Expect them to accept punishment without whining. If our kids got spanked and they were fighting me with it and were still belligerent and whining and complaining, they got more spanking. And I think that's part of the... I'm off on a tangent. I think that's part of the problem. Well, we spank our kids and it's like, that's nothing. You have got to get their attention. You've got to break their will, not their spirit, not their heart. You should win their heart. But when their will is opposed to your will, you have got to win that fight, no matter how far you take it. Now, I say that within reason. There should never be a place where a child is abused. Never. There's a place where to be spanked, and in the right way. And a child should never suffer because of a proper chastening event. And so, with children, there should be no disrespect, no negotiation, no looks, no whining. Expect them to accept the punishment. Expect them to live by a schedule. Time to get up, time to get dressed, time to eat, all of that. And there might be some exceptions to that at times, but when it's bedtime, they should go to bed. And they shouldn't be up to 12 o'clock at night. Expect them to be good. Teach them kind actions towards other people, kind thoughts. Teach them to share their toys. If your child has to have every toy in the nursery, right? They can't play with all of them at once, but they want all of them at once. If that's something that you need to train them not to do that, they should be trained to share their toys. They should be trained not to fight, not to hit. Okay? A rule in our house, our kids are 4 years apart, so it was maybe easier for us. But we did not allow fighting, whether it was verbal fighting or physical fighting. It was not to happen. We would not allow it. That was a red line. It would never happen. And when they learned that, there was no screaming, no tantrums, no ugly faces, no attitudes. It wasn't allowed. And once they learn that, and they will learn that, oh, how happy it is. It's happy for them. It's happy for you. And the home becomes a happy place for children. Teach them accountability. Teach them to clean their room, put their toys away. And be consistent with your expectations. Now, we're not saying your house is to be like a military camp. There's always love, always grace, always compassion, always relationship, laughter in your home, doing fun things with your kids, all of that. And if you balance all that thing out, but you train your children, I'll tell you what, your children will be happy. Our kids were happy at home. They got on with one another. They got on with us. There was laughter in the house. And we didn't have any of the complications that many families have. Thank God. I couldn't take it. I would go nuts if I had to live in some people's houses with what's going on. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We got a blueprint. We got an instruction manual. And if you do it the way God says to do it, He wants your home to be happy. He wants to enjoy that wonderful place at home. We live in a time when old-fashioned parenting skills are mostly forgotten. Many children are out of control, undisciplined, disrespectful, disobedient. You know what happens? The children are then tolerated. They're a nuisance to their parents. There's no delight. There's no joy. And they're tolerated by you. They're also tolerated by other people. They're tolerated by the teachers at school or the kindergarten. And the children themselves are not happy, nor are their parents. The Bible way, loving, consistent boundaries will make children feel safe and content, and the home will be a place of peace and happiness and laughter. That's what God wants for us. We're living in a whole society where many people get it wrong. Now, there's other good examples out there too, but I'm telling you, we're living in a time where people have forgot all these things, and it's horrendous. And God doesn't want you to follow that way. He wants you to do it the Bible way, because you'll be blessed if you follow Him.